Coming up on ncIMPACT, some aspiring entrepreneurs face distinct barriers to success. We'll find out how communities are expanding opportunities for all small business owners. This is ncIMPACT.
ncIMPACT is a PBS North Carolina production in association with the University of North Carolina School of Government. Funding for ncIMPACT is made possible by
changing the course of people's lives. That's the impact UNC Health and the UNC School of Medicine work to deliver every day. Our 40,000 team members across the state of North Carolina are committed to caring for you, our patients and communities, as well as educating the next generation of healthcare professionals. Individually, we can do a little, but collectively, we can do a lot to create impact.
Hello and welcome to ncIMPACT. I'm Anita Brown Graham. Craft breweries are growing in popularity and profitability. However, of the nation's 8,500 craft breweries, less than 1% are owned by people of color. Here in North Carolina, the state boasts 380 breweries and brew pubs, the most in the American South. But only 2 of these are Black-owned. ncIMPACT's Evan Howell visited a brew pub in Charlotte to learn more about people of color getting into the industry.
Oh, okay.
Diedrich McFadden always had an interest in beer, particularly craft beer, but never thought he'd grow into seeing it as a passion. But rugby changed his mind.
In rugby, you meet people from literally all over the globe, and at the pub is a big drink up after each game.
McFadden wanted to get into brewing craft beer, but had trouble finding an avenue where he could get the mentorship he needed.
I'd seen a few people of color in the industry, not anything of this scale, like a wholehearted push to get more people involved.
McFadden is a graduate of the Many Faces Initiative, a paid internship program set up by Brian Quinn at Town Brewing in Charlotte, designed to get more people of color into the trade.
We want to create spaces that are truly inclusive and truly serve the community. Then we need to make sure that we cast a wide net with our definition of community. So really wanted to expand the definition of community to make sure that craft beer is living up to its promise.
Partner breweries help support the program by donating to the effort, which in turn helps smaller breweries enhance their workforce. Eugenia Brown says 2 Black-owned breweries are in development in Charlotte right now, but says more women need to get involved as well.
We sometimes say it's a boys' club where it's all about who you know and less about what you know. And so breaking in when you may not have experience or when you don't look like your typical white guy with a beard can be really hard.
1.007.
McFadden says if beer is culture, then who makes it becomes even more important.
You have different cuisines, different places. You can apply that to brewing, have different ingredients, add to it, tell a different story from a different point of view.
McFadden says he may not play much rugby these days, but says he'll never forget those post-game beers which opened his eyes to what's ahead. For ncIMPACT, I'm Evan Howell.
Thank you, Evan. Joining me now is Dion McGee. Dion is the president and CEO of DG McGee Enterprises. Dion, let's start with, what do you do at DG Enterprises?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. Glad to be able to share. We are a program and project management firm. We focus on career development, entrepreneur development, and financial development. So that looks like projects, programs, cohorts, and we are just helping stimulate the economy with our programming.
Well, thank you for that. Obviously, you can see there is such a need.
Yes.
Going beyond craft beer for a moment, give us some sense of what you think a community loses when it does not have an inclusive entrepreneurial system.
I honestly will call it the lack thereof proof of possibility. I share the story all the time where I wish I had seen an entrepreneur when I was in middle school or high school, so I would know what entrepreneurship really looked like. So I just feel like we do what we've seen, and we've seen our parents work for 25 years, retire, and get the gold watch. But what if we had seen them become entrepreneurs early on, there will be a lot more entrepreneurs on this path towards success and stimulating the economy. So by not seeing it, we lose what could be the stimulation of our economy right in our own city, right in our own states. So we miss out on that every chance.
So let's flip the coin for a second. When you do your work, how do you see communities benefiting from having a more diverse entrepreneurial system?
I'll say this is some of the most magnificent work that I've ever done in my career. I say there's work and then there's work that matters. This is the work that matters. So I am a retired corporate executive, and one of the programs that my firm directs is the Eastern North Carolina Entrepreneurial Promise. That program, the concept phase was funded by ncIDEA, so thanks to Tom Brewer and his team. We partner with Partner Community Capital and the Institute of Economic Development. With that being said, it is targeted for those rural counties, the Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties of the state. At this point, we have helped 30 plus business owners scale their businesses to 6 figures. So we're on trajectory towards 6 figures or hiring employees. So a lot of times it is the capital that they don't have access to, or it is the resources they don't have access to, or even the programming, which is why this program was so necessary to take place and to stand up in those Tier 1 and 2 tier spaces. I am originally from Washington, North Carolina, so I'm down home, Eastern North Carolina girl, so I know what it means to have an amazing idea and not be able to push forward because you don't have the right resources to get it done. So it's not just work to me. I'm seeing the difference that it's making in business owners, and it moves me to keep going.
Dion, thank you for that. Thank you for what you do. Stay with us. We'll come back to you in just a moment. Entrepreneurs of color operate more than 8 million businesses and employ more than 7 million people nationwide. But these entrepreneurs are still facing some barriers to success. ncIMPACT's Kelly McCullen introduces us to a program in Randolph County that is serving a diverse group of business owners.
Jonah Litch is an entrepreneur who found her best chance at success in Asheboro, North Carolina.
I saw it on a commercial on television, and I was like, that seems interesting. It was like a Black Business Accelerator program. So I reached out, and hence how I ended up being a part of Venture.
Jonah's a fashion designer and a budding Venture Asheboro success story. Venture Asheboro is a group that helped her learn business, talk business, and then launch her business.
Venture gives you a seat at the table. As a minority, and just being totally honest, you do not always get that. If you don't have someone that's on the inside that kind of knows the system, that can navigate you in the direction that you need to go, then as a new business owner, and basically almost as a startup, although I've been doing this for years, you need someone on the inside that can, again, give you that insight or give you the feedback that you need to allow others to accept you.
Venture Asheboro is known as a business accelerator program, and it's led by Dr. Jonathan Thill.
I saw an opportunity for me to add value, and for me to feel like Venture Asheboro and what I wanted to do with my career could be meaningful and have impact over a long period of time. I do like the background being animated.
Dr. Thill says rural areas can grow economically by encouraging people to start small businesses.
Because it's still going to be good, but if it cuts off the logo.
So he's lending his talents to people with big ideas, but often bigger hurdles in getting started.
The next big thing is having video in the background. Our target market is first generation and underrepresented entrepreneurs. So those entrepreneurs that didn't grow up in a household with the jargon and strategy conversations that happened at night.
Jonathan and his team have been able to serve over 80 entrepreneurs, help over 30 new female and minority entrepreneurs get started.
And so the reason it's so important to the Black community is because we are filled with these ideas. All throughout this community is a gold mine of great ideas and great answers to needs in Randolph County.
And we owe it all to.
Ryan Terry launched his property management company through Venture Asheboro.
I was able to
get a business plan together, capital to fund the business, start the projects, the connections. Jonathan Thiel is a great business coach for me. I was placed with a mentor to help me make better decisions to start out, which made things a lot simpler. I avoided a lot of pitfalls people face.
If Dr. Thiel's vision becomes a long-term success, he'll have brought community colleges, local banks, and chambers of commerce together to build an economy from the grassroots up. For ncIMPACT, I'm Kelly McCullen.
Thank you, Kelly. Joining me now is Tom Rue. Tom is the president and CEO of NC Idea. Tom, give us a little bit about what NC Idea is, and then talk to us a little bit about this fund that you put together that made that Black Business Accelerator program possible.
Sure, thank you, Anita, and it's a real pleasure to be here and share with you a little bit about the work we do. So NC Idea at its core is a independent private foundation that really functions as an economic development organization. And so what does that mean? Well, kind of in shorthand, it means we help people become economically emancipated through equitable economic development practices. That's funding organizations and programs like Dion McGee's program out east, the Venture Asheboro program that you just saw featured. These are the types of programs that we fund at the ecosystem level so that they in turn can go out into their markets locally, find and assist underserved populations, and help them realize the American dream of entrepreneurship.
So let's talk a little bit about underserved populations. Who are we talking about, and what are the barriers they face?
That's a great question because underserved, different organizations have different definitions. For us, it means specifically women, minorities, and rural. So we have seen probably about 7 years ago, just as I was starting, we did a heavy analysis on the marketplaces, and no big surprise, North Carolina is just like most other places. Those groups, specifically minority women and the rural communities, they just are underserved incredibly from access to capital and many other factors. So we kind of stacked hands along with the board and the staff and said, we have to change that. And then that manifested in an evolution of our programming over time that has seen much more invested in helping these underserved communities.
And Tom, if you can, so we've got these three groups, maybe different challenges. What precisely does NC Idea do for them? Or is really the value add what's happening at the local level through an accelerator or some other program like Dion's?
It's actually a more comprehensive approach. So yes, the partner organizations and the work they do, that's invaluable. And that's a big reason why we've invested so heavily in that. And frankly, it's the largest from a pure dollar standpoint program that we fund. But we also do direct funding for entrepreneurs, specifically through what's called our seed and micro grant program, which are $50,000 and $10,000 grants respectively, and they go directly to the entrepreneurs themselves, oftentimes working with some of these partners to help them during the spend and meeting the milestones that they wanted the funding for.
Fantastic. Tom, stick with us. I'm going to bring you and Dion back in a moment. One of the biggest barriers underserved entrepreneurs face is access to capital. In fact, a recent credit survey that found that white-owned small businesses were twice as likely to be fully approved for financing as Black and Latino-owned firms that were similarly situated. ncIMPACT's David Hurst has a story of one rural community using partnerships to help entrepreneurs get their business off the ground.
In rural Tier 1 communities like Halifax County, people of color and women often have fewer opportunities to start and grow businesses. But the community is leveraging its partnerships to lower barriers and expand opportunities available to a diverse set of entrepreneurs. For Ashley Gorham, styling hair has always been in the family.
That led to being a career because I knew how to do it, and I was good at it.
She worked at a local salon for 5 years before starting her own business.
I saw it as a vision, but, I didn't really think it was going to happen until I was pushed to do it.
That push turned into a leap of faith, as she had no idea how to get money to start her salon.
In the beginning, I thought I had to do it on my own. I didn't really know where to turn.
She eventually found the Small Business Center at Halifax Community College. It was there she met Kelly Barber. Barber and her team helped Ashley get her business off the ground and even connected her to funding through the nonprofit Thread Capital.
And if the Small Business Center and Thread Capital can remove the obstacles, the barriers, the financial barriers, the fear barriers, I can't imagine how far they can go. And I know the good impact they will have in our community.
Like many rural communities, Halifax County has struggled since the textile mills closed in the 1990s. But now things are starting to turn around, and it's the roughly 100 minority and women-owned businesses that are leading the way.
For those of us, Ashley and myself, who've grown up in this community, it's been 30 years of looking for some hope. And so this generation of entrepreneurs is the hope that we need, that we're not dying. We hear that every day. We're stagnant, we're dying. And so every entrepreneur that opens a brick and mortar, an online store, it's hope.
For Ashley Gorham, the success of her salon gave her the opportunity to expand, and now she owns 3 other properties.
I am very thankful, very, very, very thankful. It takes a team to get places, and when you have help, it works out.
It's helping her create opportunities for herself and her family that she didn't think were possible. And she hopes her success story will encourage other minority business owners to take a similar leap of faith. Thread Capital is a subsidiary of the North Carolina Rural Center. Last year, they gave over $57 million in loans to underserved entrepreneurs in 78 different counties. They point to Halifax County as one of their community success stories.
Thank you for that, David. Let's bring back our experts. Joining us for our ncIMPACT Roundtable is Jonathan Burton. Jonathan is the Executive Director for Thread Capital. So, Jonathan, I'm taking away the word hope from that last story. But when you reflect on the kind of success that your work is creating in places like Halifax, what goes through your mind?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today and the opportunity to share a little bit about the work we do. 2 words come to mind. One is, I'm not sure this is the perfect word, but satisfaction. I think there's, we do the work we do in order to see entrepreneurs like Ashley succeed. And the journey that Ashley had to follow, the hurdles that she had to clear, are hurdles that a lot of entrepreneurs across the state face. And if we can help even one entrepreneur over some of those hurdles, that's something that we definitely take some satisfaction from. Ultimately, it's the entrepreneur that does all the hard work, though, so we can't forget that. I think the other piece is just gratitude for the team that is at Thread Capital and at the organizations across the state, like Kelly at the Halifax Small Business Center. These are people that go to work every day doing difficult financial work. There's a lot easier finance jobs out there than the jobs that these folks do every day.
So let me ask you to follow up on that a moment. As you know, this show is all about collaborations. What role does Thread Capital play specifically in these collaborations with local communities?
So ultimately, the whole market here is an ecosystem. Tom Rue and ncIDEA referenced that. There's a very large ecosystem of resource providers, Thread Capital being one of those, that are trying to get all the resources that an entrepreneur needs in order to start a business and for that business to thrive. We're trying to reach those entrepreneurs with those resources. And we work hard to collaborate. We work hard to make sure that an entrepreneur that finds one of us can find their way to whoever the best resource provider is across the state. But we also recognize that as much progress as we might make, there's still a long way to go. These are ultimately generally nonprofit organizations, not exclusively, but generally that are providing this work. And when we use terms like supply and demand, there's a lot more demand than there is supply for these services. And I think ultimately it's going to take a very robust effort of the public and private sectors to really scale these resource providers to be sure that we can help all the Ashleys across the state.
So Tom, I'm going to ask you an unfair pop quiz question because I just realized that all four of us, myself included, have used the word ecosystem in talking about entrepreneurial ecosystems. What is an ecosystem? There's somebody watching somewhere who's asking that question, and I'm asking it for them.
It's a fair question. As a matter of fact, we defined that at our 2019 summit. And it really is, all of the collective of the organizations and individuals that really are working at some degree around the shared value of supporting individuals in their entrepreneurial potential. And that goes from the very start of, the ideation, how do I get help on that, work through one of our great SBCs with one of the best statewide, network of community colleges. And then, they get to that point, then what's the next thing they need? Well, then there's like tactical information you need. How do I do accounting and marketing? And, I've got organizations that can coach me like, DG McGee on this panel, right? Those are the people in the ecosystem that have a service component to it. And Thread obviously is a very big one. And then from there, it's the next stage, right? When do I have to really start raising money beyond just debt? And we have a very vibrant private equity community, in the state. And when that all works together, it's a beautiful thing.
Love it. So Dion, I want to go to you. We've talked a lot about people of color in this episode, but I don't want to forget Tom's point about women being underserved. Talk to us a little bit about your work with women. And in fact, any of you who want to jump in and show off about how you're pushing good collaborations to serve women who are entrepreneurs, have at it.
So, no, thank you for that. And to your point, women-owned businesses are growing by exponential numbers. 2022, we just held our inaugural ROAR conference. It is the relentless, optimistic, ambitious, and results-driven conference. It was designed for women by yours truly. We had about 100 women in the room, and the goal was to make sure that we created our own ecosystem to be able to grow and scale in our businesses, in our careers, because sometimes it is the careers that help us bootstrap, if you will, to give us the funding that we need to support our businesses from an ideation stage, right? But with it being said, I wanted to make sure that we were pouring into the hearts and the minds of the women that had ideas and just didn't have the mindset to get to where it is that they needed to be. So we equipped them with the ROAR mindset. It was an amazing time, looking to do more of that type of work here in 2023. But as Tom says, it is an ecosystem. It's a beautiful thing when we all come together. It's a partnership, it's a collaboration where we all network because we have one common goal in mind, and that is to push the entrepreneurial development and the movement to go forward, not just for minorities, but for women, and especially those in those rural counties, as Tom said.
So let me end with a question for you, Jonathan, and it really focuses on rural. You're housed out of the rural center. I assume you know a little something about rural North Carolina. There's some places, some rural places in North Carolina that are known for an entrepreneurial spirit, an entrepreneurial culture. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you have a few successful entrepreneurs like we saw in Halifax and then everybody else gets the bug? Or is there something that is deep-seated in these communities that's hard to replicate?
That's a really good question. And I think Dion earlier referenced seeing examples of successful entrepreneurs and how that can create a vision of what's possible. I think that's definitely something that we like to celebrate. So the stories like Ashley's, the more people can see entrepreneurs that look like them, that had resources very similar to the resources they had to begin, see them become successes, that creates hope. I think you used the word hope earlier, Anita. That creates people a belief that they can do it too. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My uncle started a business. Both my brothers are entrepreneurs. It's not an accident that I do the work I do. I grew up where entrepreneurship was a part of, it was in the water in our household. And I think that's something that's not easily replicated.
So the key to this ecosystem is to spread that water far and wide. Jonathan, Tom, Dion, I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing across North Carolina and for all that hope you're spreading along with the water. And of course, Got to say thank you to those local entrepreneurs who are lifting up what is possible and trusted us enough to tell their stories today. Finally, we never end the show without saying thank you to our amazing audience for watching and engaging. You know the solutions are out there if we work together. We want you to tell us what your community is doing or how we can help you. You can email us at ncimpact@unc.edu or send a message on Twitter or Facebook. And be sure to join us every Friday night at 7:30 on PBS North Carolina for new episodes of NC Impact. Coming up on NC Impact, crime and public safety are among the issues that have taken center stage across the country. We'll find out how communities are working together to make their neighborhoods safer.
NC Impact is a PBS North Carolina production in association with the University of North Carolina School of Government. Funding for NC Impact is made possible by
changing the course of people's lives. That's the impact UNC Health and the UNC School of Medicine work to deliver every day. Our 40,000 team members across the state of North Carolina are committed to caring for you, our patients and communities, as well as educating the next generation of healthcare professionals. Individually, we can do a little, but collectively, we can do a lot to create impact.